He texted, "Rain check tonight. A work emergency." I replied, "Stay safe." Then I tracked his phone to his ex's apartment. The midnight pizza I sent there made him panic. I am 35 years old, and I make my living looking at numbers. As a senior data analyst for a mid-sized logistics firm, my entire job revolves around identifying patterns, spotting anomalies, and removing bad data before it corrupts the whole system. You would think that someone who spends 40 hours a week finding hidden flaws in spreadsheets would be able to spot a liar sitting right across the dinner table. But love has a funny way of scrambling your logic. Love makes you ignore the glaring red flags and focus entirely on the pretty green ones. It was 8 o'clock at night on a rainy Thursday. I was sitting at a corner booth in an upscale Italian restaurant downtown. The kind of place with dim, amber lighting, heavy silverware, and waiters who speak in hushed, reverent tones. This was supposed to be our 2-year anniversary dinner. My boyfriend, Wyatt, who was 33 years old and perpetually charming, had made the reservation 3 weeks in advance. He was the one who insisted on this specific place. I sat there sipping sparkling water, watching the ice cubes melt. The waiter, a polite young guy with a crisp white apron, drifted over for the 3rd time. He had that look in his eye, the kind of sympathetic, pitying look people give you when they realize you're being stood up. I gave him a tight, reassuring smile and told him I was just waiting for my partner to finish up a late meeting. I checked my watch. 8:15. Then, my phone buzzed on the dark mahogany table. The screen lit up with a message from Wyatt. It read, "Rain check tonight. A work emergency. I am so sorry, babe. Make it up to you tomorrow." I stared at the glowing letters until they started to blur. I did not cry. I did not gasp or drop my phone. Instead, a very cold, very clinical silence washed over my brain. In my line of work, a single anomaly is a glitch. 2 anomalies are a coincidence. 3 constitute a trend. This text message was the 6th time this month that Wyatt had canceled our plans at the absolute last minute due to a work emergency. 6 times in 30 days. My analytical brain finally woke up from its 2-year hibernation. I started running the variables. Wyatt worked in marketing. He was a mid-level manager at an advertising agency. Yes, campaigns had tight deadlines, but marketing is not a trauma ward. Nobody needs emergency, life-saving advertising at 8:30 at night on a Thursday. I looked at the empty chair across from me. It looked like a stage prop for a play that had just been canceled. For the past 6 months, Wyatt and I had been talking seriously about the future. We had even opened a joint savings account, a house fund. We were planning to put a down payment on a 3-bedroom place in the suburbs by the end of the year. We had spent countless Sunday mornings drinking coffee, scrolling through real estate listings, arguing playfully over hardwood floors versus carpet. I had built an entire mental architecture of my future around this man. I typed a reply. My thumbs moved smoothly, methodically. I wrote, "No problem at all. Stay safe." I hit send. The waiter appeared again, hovering near my shoulder. I looked up at him, my expression completely flat. I asked for the check for the sparkling water. He brought it quickly, refusing to meet my eyes. I left a $20 bill on the table, grabbed my coat, and walked out into the cool, damp city night. The rain had stopped, leaving the pavement slick and reflective. I got into my car, shut the door, and locked it. The silence inside the cabin was absolute. I sat there in the dark parking garage, gripping the steering wheel. I told myself that I was not going to be the hysterical, weeping girlfriend. I was not going to call him and beg for the truth. I was going to gather the data. With fingers that did not tremble even a fraction of an inch, I picked up my phone and opened the location tracking app. It was a family sharing feature we had set up over a year ago. And what I saw next completely rewrote the last 2 years of my life. The app loaded with a soft digital chime. The map of the city materialized on my screen, a grid of glowing gray streets and green parks. There was my blue dot, sitting stationary in the restaurant parking garage. And there was Wyatt's gray dot. It was not at his downtown office building. It was not at a client dinner. It was miles away, sitting perfectly still in the northern suburbs. I zoomed in. The street names came into focus. Then the building outline. The gray dot was hovering exactly over the Oakwood apartment complex. I stared at the screen, letting the reality of the geography sink into my bones. The Oakwood apartment complex. I knew that place. I had never been there, but I knew exactly who lived in building number 4. It was Blair, Wyatt's ex-girlfriend. A wave of nausea hit me, quickly followed by a rush of pure, icy clarity. Blair was the woman he had dated for 3 years before me. When we first met, Wyatt used to talk about her with this heavy, exhausted sigh. He painted her as this incredibly fragile, emotionally unstable bird with a broken wing. He told me their relationship had drained him, that she was totally dependent on him, and that leaving her was the hardest but most necessary thing he had ever done. He promised me he had cut all contact. He spoke her name the way you speak about a bad bout of food poisoning, something unpleasant that you have completely recovered from. But here he was, on the night of our 2-year anniversary, sitting in her apartment. The darkest irony of it all was the tracking app itself. I never asked for it. Over a year ago, Wyatt had been the one who insisted we turn on location sharing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. He claimed he worried about me working late and driving home in the dark. He said it would give him peace of mind knowing I was safe. At the time, I thought it was incredibly sweet. Now, looking at that gray dot, I realized exactly what it was. It was a classic manipulation tactic. Cheaters often project their own untrustworthy behavior onto their partners. By monitoring my location, he felt in control. He felt safe knowing exactly where I was, which made it easier for him to sneak around. He just never expected me to check it. He thought I was too trusting, too blinded by our Sunday morning house hunting sessions to ever look closely at the data. I leaned my head back against the leather headrest of my car. My mind was racing, cataloging every single one of those 6 work emergencies from the past month. The late-night texts. The times he took a shower immediately after coming home. The subtle shifts in his vocabulary. The puzzle pieces were snapping together with terrifying speed, creating a picture of a man who was living a complete double life. I could have driven there. It was only a 20-minute drive up the highway. I could have banged on her apartment door, screamed until my throat was raw, and caused a massive, dramatic scene. I could have thrown my phone at his chest and cried. That is what people do in the movies. That is what a crazy, emotional girlfriend does. But I am a data analyst. I do not deal in screaming matches. I deal in undeniable, documented proof. If I confronted him now, face to face, he would lie. Narcissists always have a script ready. He would say his car broke down nearby and she let him use her phone. He would say she threatened to harm herself and he rushed over to save her life. He would gaslight me until I was the one apologizing for being suspicious. I needed to go off script. I needed a variable he could not possibly anticipate. I needed hard evidence that he could not explain away. I took a deep breath, the cold air filling my lungs and steadying my racing heart. I opened a popular food delivery app on my phone. If Wyatt was going to spend our anniversary working up a sweat at his ex-girlfriend's apartment, the least I could do was make sure he was properly fed. I began to prepare a midnight delivery that would burn his entire carefully constructed alibi straight to the ground. The glow of the food delivery app illuminated the dark interior of my car. I scrolled through the options until I found a local pizza place that stayed open late, located just 2 miles from the Oakwood apartment complex. I tapped the screen, my movements deliberate and steady. I ordered their largest, most expensive pizza, a massive, meat lover's pie with extra cheese and jalapenos. I added a side of garlic knots and a 2-liter bottle of soda. The total came out to about $40. But the food was completely irrelevant. It was merely the delivery vehicle for the message. I moved to the checkout screen and clicked on the box for special delivery instructions. This was the critical part. If I just sent food, they might ignore a knock at the door, or the driver might just leave it on the welcome mat. I needed absolute confirmation. I typed out my instructions with absolute precision. Please do not leave the food on the ground. You must ring the doorbell and hand the pizza directly to the man inside the apartment. It is very important. Then I went to the section for a custom gift note. The app allowed you to print a message that would be stapled directly to the top of the pizza box. I did not write a long, emotional paragraph. I did not curse or use exclamation points. I kept it as brief and devastating as a legal summons. I typed, "Since your work emergency is so demanding tonight, here is some fuel. We are done. Fix your location sharing, Wyatt." From Stella. I reviewed the order. The address was set perfectly to Blair's building and unit number. The note was attached. Now, for the insurance policy. Delivery drivers are usually in a hurry. They drop the food, take a blurry picture of the door, and run. I needed the driver to be highly motivated to follow my exact instructions and capture the moment. In the tip section, I did not select the standard 15 or 20%. I typed in a custom tip amount. $50. A $50 tip on a $40 order. I hit confirm and paid with my credit card. The screen updated with an estimated delivery time of 35 to 45 minutes. I started the engine of my car and pulled out of the parking garage. I drove home through the quiet city streets, the rhythmic sweep of the windshield wipers the only sound in the cabin. I did not turn on the radio. I did not cry. The shock had completely insulated me. I felt like I was floating a few inches outside of my own body, watching a stranger execute a flawless tactical maneuver. By the time I unlocked the door to my apartment, it was almost 9 o'clock. The apartment was exactly how I had left it. Wyatt's shoes were near the door. His favorite jacket was draped over the back of the dining chair. A framed photo of us from a vacation in Mexico sat on the bookshelf, both of us smiling, looking impossibly happy and foolish. I walked past all of it without a second glance. I sat down at the kitchen island, placed my phone face up on the counter, and waited. The delivery app showed a little animated car moving slowly up the map toward the northern suburbs. I watched the digital vehicle make its final turn onto Blair Street. The status changed to "Driver is approaching." I poured myself a glass of cold water and drank it slowly. The silence in my kitchen was heavy, thick with anticipation. I imagined the delivery driver, a young kid probably thrilled about the $50 tip, walking up the exterior stairs of Building 4. I imagined him holding the warm box, finding the unit number, and pressing the illuminated doorbell. At exactly 9:10 at night, my phone chimed loudly against the marble countertop. It was a notification from the delivery app. "Your order has been delivered." Below the notification was an image file. The driver had followed my instructions flawlessly. I tapped the photo to expand it. It captured something so profoundly validating, it gave me all the leverage I would ever need for the rest of my life. The photograph on my screen was a masterpiece of unintentional modern art. The delivery driver had held his camera up high to capture the handoff. The focus was on the pizza box, clearly showing the printed receipt with my custom message stapled to the cardboard. But the background was the real prize. Standing in the doorway, caught in the harsh glare of the apartment porch light, was Wyatt. He was not wearing his work suit. He was wearing a faded gray t-shirt and loose sweatpants. His hair was messy. And his face, the expression on his face was one of absolute, unadulterated panic. His eyes were wide, staring down at the customized note on the box. His mouth was slightly open. He looked like a man who had just stepped on a landmine and heard the click. Over his shoulder, slightly out of focus in the background, you could see the edge of a woman's pink robe. Blair. I took a screenshot of the photo. Then I saved the original image to my camera roll. I backed it up to my cloud storage. Receipts are oxygen, and I was making sure I had enough to breathe for a very long time. Less than 30 seconds after the photo arrived, my phone began to vibrate violently across the counter. Wyatt was calling. I watched his name flash on the screen. The urge to pick up and listen to him scramble, to hear his voice crack with desperation, was strong. But answering would give him a platform. Answering would mean a conversation, and a conversation meant he had a chance to manipulate the narrative. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. Immediately, the text started pouring in. "Stella, please answer. It is not what it looks like. Let me explain. The delivery guy got the wrong apartment. I am at my mother's house. Stella, you are misunderstanding this. Please pick up the phone. He was throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what would stick. Denying he was there, even though I had a time-stamped photo of his face. Claiming he was at his mother's house, which was in a completely different zip code. It was pathetic. I opened my phone settings and toggled on the Do Not Disturb mode. The screen went dark, swallowing his frantic messages into the digital void. I did not go to the bedroom. I stayed at the kitchen island and opened my laptop. My heart was beating a slow, steady rhythm. The emotional fallout would hit me eventually, I knew that. But right now, I had administrative work to do. I logged into our joint banking portal. The screen loaded, displaying our shared savings account, the house fund. Over the past 6 months, we had both been aggressively depositing portions of our paychecks into this account. The current balance sat at exactly $90,000. I clicked on the transfer tab. I selected my personal, individual checking account as the destination. In the amount box, I typed in $45,000. Exactly one half. Down to the very last cent. I clicked confirm. The loading will spun for 2 seconds, and then the green checkmark appeared. The money was gone, safely secured behind my own private passwords. Next, I navigated to my credit card portal. Wyatt was an authorized user on my premium travel card. With 3 clicks, I revoked his access and permanently canceled his physical card. By 2 in the morning, I had systematically audited my life. I had erased him from my financial future. I closed the laptop, finally feeling a deep, profound exhaustion settle into my bones. I walked into the bedroom, crawled under the cold sheets, and closed my eyes. I felt entirely detached, like a surgeon who had just successfully amputated a rotting limb. I finally went to sleep, feeling lighter than I had in months. But Wyatt was not a man who accepted consequences gracefully. His ego was a fragile, dangerous thing. And the morning was about to bring his desperation directly to my workplace. Thank you for watching this far. If you found this story interesting, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment letting me know which city or state you're watching from. Every like and comment helps the video reach a wider audience, and that's a huge motivation for me to continue making videos. Thank you so much. The next morning arrived with a gray, overcast sky. I woke up at my usual time, 6:30 in the morning. I showered, made coffee, and put on a sharp navy blue blazer. I applied my makeup with extra care, ensuring not a single eyelash was out of place. I looked completely unaffected. I looked like a woman who had spent her evening reading a good book, not a woman who had just detonated her 2-year relationship with a meat lover's pizza. I drove to my corporate office building downtown and badged in at 8:45. I settled into my desk, opened my spreadsheets, and started running my morning data reports. My phone was still on Do Not Disturb. I had over 40 missed calls and dozens of unread text messages from Wyatt. I ignored all of them. At exactly 9:15 in the morning, my office chat software pinged. It was a message from Sarah, the receptionist down in the main lobby. Hey Stella, sorry to bother you. There is a man down here asking to see you. He says it is a personal emergency. He looks pretty upset. Do you want me to call security? I closed my eyes for a brief second. Wyatt had actually shown up at my job. I typed back, no need for security yet, Sarah. I will be right down. I walked out of the elevator and into the expansive, glass-walled lobby of my building. It was a busy Friday morning. Coworkers were milling about, grabbing coffee from the lobby cafe, swiping their badges at the turnstiles. It was a terrible place for a private conversation, which I knew was exactly why Wyatt chose it. He wanted an audience. He thought if he cornered me in public, I would be forced to play nice and listen to him to avoid making a scene. I spotted him standing near the reception desk. He looked awful. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair was uncombed, and his eyes were red and swollen. He was holding 2 cardboard coffee cups, clutching them like they were life preservers. He was playing the role of the remorseful, heartbroken boyfriend to absolute perfection. When he saw me, he rushed forward, his face twisting into a mask of pure agony. Stella. Thank God. Please, you have to let me explain. I stopped walking, keeping a good 3 feet of distance between us. I folded my arms across my chest. You have exactly 60 seconds, Wyatt. Do not waste them. He looked nervously at the reception desk, where Sarah was very obviously pretending to sort mail while listening intently. Can we please go outside? Or to a coffee shop? Not here. 50 seconds, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, but cold as ice. He swallowed hard, panic flashing in his eyes. Okay. Listen. Blair texted me yesterday afternoon. She was in a terrible place. She was crying hysterically. Her father just died, Stella. He passed away yesterday morning. She has no one else. I only went over there to make sure she didn't do anything stupid. I swear to you, nothing happened. I was just trying to keep her safe. He looked at me with those big, pleading eyes, waiting for my expression to soften, waiting for my empathy to kick in. It was a brilliant, manipulative lie. It was designed to make me look like a monster if I stayed angry. How could I be mad at a man for comforting a grieving woman who had just lost her father? I let a small, humorless smile touch the corners of my mouth. Her father just died? I asked quietly. Yes, Wyatt nodded frantically. Yesterday. It was a tragedy. That is fascinating, I said, keeping my voice perfectly level. Because I did a background check on Blair about 6 months ago, back when you kept bringing her up. Just out of curiosity. Her father, Thomas, passed away from a heart attack in August of 2019. It is a matter of public record. His obituary is still online. Wyatt froze. The color completely drained from his face, leaving him looking like a wax statue. His jaw practically unhinged. He tried to stammer out a response, but no words came. His brain was short-circuiting. He had not anticipated the data. You are out of time, I said. I turned around, my heels clicking sharply against the marble floor, and walked back to the security turnstiles. I left him standing there in the middle of the lobby, holding his 2 lukewarm coffees, looking like the absolute fool he was. I thought that would be the end of it for the day. But I had severely underestimated the audacity of his supposedly grieving ex-girlfriend. The rest of the workday passed in a blur of spreadsheets and meetings. By the time I left the office at 5:30 in the evening, I felt a heavy exhaustion creeping up my neck. I sat in my car in the parking garage and finally turned off the Do Not Disturb mode on my phone. Instantly, a barrage of notifications flooded the screen. But it wasn't just Wyatt anymore. I had a missed call and a long text message from Naomi. Naomi was a mutual friend of ours, someone we frequently had dinner with on weekends. I opened her text. Stella, what the hell is going on? Wyatt called me crying. He said you dumped him via a pizza delivery and humiliated him in front of his whole office building? He said he was just checking on Blair because she is going through a severe depressive episode. You know he has a big heart. Don't you think you are overreacting a little bit? You are being incredibly cruel to throw away 2 years over a misunderstanding. I stared at the screen. A misunderstanding. The word tasted like poison. Wyatt had already deployed his flying monkeys. He was spinning the narrative, playing the victim, and painting me as the cold, calculating, jealous girlfriend who lacked basic human empathy. I opened Instagram. Against my better judgment, I searched for Blair's profile. Her account was public. She had posted a new story just 2 hours ago. It was a selfie of her sitting on a couch, looking wistfully out a window. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. The caption at the bottom of the screen read, "Helping a loved one heal from their trauma doesn't make you a villain. Real ones know the truth. Thankful for the people who never give up on me." Underneath the post, Wyatt had left a comment, "Always here for you. Ignore the noise." A cold fury ignited in my chest. It wasn't enough that they were lying to me. They were actively rewriting history for a public audience. They were making me the antagonist in my own life. They thought because I was quiet, because I hadn't made a dramatic scene, that I was weak. They thought they could control the narrative because they were louder. I decided it was time to introduce a little bit of reality into their fiction. I opened the private group chat on my phone. It was a group containing about 15 of our closest mutual friends, including Naomi. The chat had been dormant for a few days. I did not write a long, defensive paragraph explaining my side of the story. I did not call them names. Data doesn't need to yell to be heard. I selected 2 photos from my camera roll. The first was a screenshot of the location tracking app, clearly showing Wyatt's gray dot hovering directly over the Oakwood apartment complex at 8:30 on the night of our anniversary. The second photo was the masterpiece from the delivery driver. The timestamped image showing Wyatt in his sweatpants, standing in Blair's doorway, holding the pizza box with the breakup note stapled to it, while Blair hovered in the background. I attached both photos to the chat. I typed a simple caption: "If you are going to fake a work emergency to sleep with your ex-girlfriend on your 2-year anniversary, always remember to turn off your location sharing. Have a great weekend, everyone." I hit send. I sat there in my car and watched the little red receipts pop up at the bottom of the chat one by one as people opened their phones. Naomi read it. Then David. Then Sarah. The group chat went dead silent. Nobody typed a response. Nobody sent a shocked emoji. The silence was deafening. The fake, empathetic narrative Wyatt and Blair had so carefully constructed collapsed instantly under the weight of undeniable, photographic proof. You cannot argue with timestamps and GPS coordinates. I locked my phone and started my engine. I felt a grim sense of satisfaction as I drove out of the parking garage. I had cleared my name. I had exposed the lie. I assumed they would retreat into the shadows in shame. But I forgot the cardinal rule of dealing with narcissists. When you corner a narcissist and expose their lies, they do not apologize. They escalate. And Blair was about to take things from digital manipulation to physical destruction. The weekend passed in a heavy, insulated silence. I did not hear a single word from Wyatt, Naomi, or anyone else in that friend group. My digital exposure of their lies had acted like a powerful disinfectant, clearing the infection out of my life entirely. I spent Saturday and Sunday deep cleaning my apartment, boxing up the few items Wyatt had left behind, and dropping them off at a local donation center. I felt incredibly productive. I thought the worst of the storm had passed and that we were entering the quiet, permanent aftermath of a breakup. I was wrong. Cornering a narcissist is like backing a feral animal into a cage. They do not reflect on their actions, they lash out. And Blair's preferred method of lashing out was not digital. It was physical. It was Friday evening, exactly 1 week after the catastrophic anniversary dinner. I had stayed late at the office to finish a quarterly data report. By the time I took the elevator down to the employee parking garage, it was 6:15 in the evening. The garage was mostly empty, the concrete pillars casting long, gray shadows under the flickering fluorescent lights. My footsteps echoed loudly as I walked toward my reserved parking spot. I hit the unlock button on my key fob. The headlights flashed, illuminating the concrete wall ahead. As I approached the driver's side door, I stopped dead in my tracks. Running the entire length of my car, from the edge of the front headlight, across both doors, all the way to the rear taillight, was a deep, jagged, deliberate scratch. It was not an accident. It was not the result of someone opening their door too wide. The silver paint had been gouged down to the dark metal underneath. It looked like a violent, silver scar. Someone had taken a key, or perhaps a screwdriver, and pressed it into the metal with a tremendous amount of force and rage. For a fraction of a second, a hot spike of pure, unfiltered anger shot through my chest. My hands balled into fists. My beautiful, meticulously maintained car had been violated. But then, the data analyst in me took over. Anger is a useless emotion when you are trying to solve a problem. Anger makes you reckless. I took a deep breath, inhaling the smell of car exhaust and damp concrete, and forced my heart rate to slow down. I did not touch the car. I pulled out my phone and immediately took dozens of high-resolution photographs from every possible angle, ensuring the time and location stamps were activated on the image files. I documented the depth of the scratch, the starting point, and the ending point. Once I had my visual evidence, I turned around and walked straight back to the elevator. I rode it up to the security office on the ground floor. The security guard on duty was an older man named Frank, who always waved to me in the mornings. I calmly explained the situation and asked him to pull the security footage for the lower-level parking garage between 9 in the morning and 6 in the evening. Frank was incredibly helpful. We sat in the small, monitor-filled office and scrubbed through hours of video. At exactly 2:14 in the afternoon, we found it. A figure walked into the frame from the street entrance. They were wearing baggy dark sweatpants and a bulky black hooded sweatshirt pulled up tight over their head, completely obscuring their face. The figure walked purposefully down the row of cars, went straight to mine, and dragged an object along the side of it before turning and jogging quickly out of the garage. "Damn," Frank muttered, leaning close to the screen. "With that hood, you cannot see a face. The police are going to have a hard time with this one. It could be anyone." "Pause the video," I said quietly. "Right there." Before they turn around. Frank hit the spacebar. The blurry figure froze on the screen. "Look at the feed," I said. Sticking out from beneath the dark, baggy sweatpants was a pair of bright, neon, hot pink sneakers. They were not just any sneakers. They were a highly specific, limited edition release from a major athletic brand. I knew exactly what they were because just last month, Wyatt had asked me to help him track down a pair online. He told me he was buying them as an early birthday gift for his younger sister. I had spent 2 hours on a resale website securing those exact shoes for him. They were not for his sister. They were for Blair. "I know who that is," I told Frank. "I bought those shoes." Frank sighed, giving me a sympathetic look. "I believe you, Miss Stella. But from a legal standpoint, shoes are circumstantial. A defense attorney will just say 1,000,000 people own those sneakers. Without a face, it is not enough for the police to make an arrest." He was right, of course. My analytical mind agreed with him. A pair of hot pink sneakers was a strong correlation, but it was not absolute causation. I needed a direct confession. I thanked Frank, asked him to burn a copy of the video to a digital drive, and went back down to my damaged car. I drove home slowly, feeling a cold determination settling into my bones. Blair was arrogant, reckless, and driven by emotion. People like that always make mistakes. And thanks to her explosive temper, she was about to hand-deliver the missing piece of data straight to my inbox. I parked my deeply scarred car in the designated space beneath my apartment building. I did not look at the damage again. Looking at it would only invite frustration, and I needed my mind completely clear. I walked upstairs, unlocked my front door, and dropped my keys into the ceramic bowl on the entryway table. As soon as the metal keys clinked against the bowl, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text message from a phone number I did not recognize. There was no contact name, just a local area code. I opened the message. It read, "Hope you like the new paint job on your precious car. That is what you get for humiliating me and trying to ruin my life. Have fun paying for it, you arrogant witch." I stopped breathing for a full 3 seconds. I read the message again, letting the sheer stupidity of the text wash over me. Blair had actually done it. She had committed a crime, successfully hidden her face from a security camera, and then, completely unable to contain her own ego and need for vindication, she had confessed to the crime in writing. She had practically gift-wrapped the evidence and sent it to me via cellular network. It was the digital equivalent of leaving a signed business card at the scene of a bank robbery. My thumbs moved faster than they had in my entire life. I immediately took 3 separate screenshots of the text message, capturing the phone number, the exact time the message was received, and the complete text. I then emailed the screenshots to my personal email address, my work email address, and uploaded them to a secure cloud server. You can never have too many backups when dealing with volatile data. Next, I opened my contacts and dialed Penelope. Penelope was a close friend from college who now worked as a civil litigation attorney at a prestigious downtown law firm. She was sharp, ruthless, and possessed a deeply cynical view of human nature. She picked up on the second ring. "Stella, tell me you are calling about evening drinks, because my week has been a nightmare." "I cannot do drinks," I said smoothly. "But I do have a fun legal puzzle for you." Hypothetically, if someone vandalizes my property and I have security footage of someone matching their physical description at the scene, and then that same person texts me from an unknown number bragging about the vandalism, what do we call that? There was a brief pause on the line. Then Penelope laughed, a sharp, delighted sound. We call that a slam dunk, Stella. We also call that the easiest small claims case of the decade. Do you have the text? Screenshot and backed up in 3 locations, I confirmed. Perfect, Penelope said, her lawyer brain instantly engaging. Do not reply to the text. Do not call the number. Here is what you do. First, file an online police report for vandalism tonight. Give them the video and the text message. They might not have the resources to hunt her down for a misdemeanor property crime right away, but you need the official police report number. Second, get 3 separate, itemized estimates from certified auto body shops for the repair work. Third, we file a civil suit in small claims court for property damage and harassment. I spent the next 3 hours turning my heartbreak and anger into sterile, bureaucratic paperwork. I filed the police report through the city's online portal, attaching the digital video file from Frank and the screenshots of the text message. I detailed the timeline of events objectively, removing all emotional language. It was just facts, dates, and times. The next morning, I drove to 3 different auto body shops. The scratch was deep, requiring the doors to be completely sanded down, repainted, and blended with the rest of the car. The lowest estimate I received was for $2,400. I took the estimates, the police report number, and the digital evidence, and I began filling out the small claims court paperwork. I was requesting the $2,400 for the repairs, plus court filing fees, bringing the total to over $2,600. I sat at my kitchen table, carefully writing out the details of the suit. It felt incredibly therapeutic. I was taking the chaotic, messy emotional trauma that Wyatt and Blair had inflicted upon me and organizing it into neat, actionable columns. I was turning their lies into an invoice. I thought the drama was paused until the court date arrived in the mail. I assumed they would receive the legal summons and retreat in fear. I was wrong again. They were not afraid, they were indignant. And that evening a loud, aggressive pounding echoed through my apartment, signaling that the confrontation was coming straight to my doorstep. It was Sunday evening. I was sitting on my living room sofa, drinking a cup of chamomile tea and reading a book on behavioral economics, enjoying the profound peace of my quiet apartment. The small claims paperwork was sealed in an envelope on my desk, ready to be mailed the next morning. Then, the aggressive pounding started. It was not a polite knock. It was the sound of someone hitting the heavy wooden door with the side of their fist. I set my teacup down, walked to the entryway, and looked through the small glass peephole. Standing in my brightly lit hallway was Wyatt. He looked anxious, shifting his weight from foot to foot. But he was not alone. Standing slightly behind him, with his arms crossed over his chest and a deeply aggressive scowl on his face, was a tall, heavily built man I recognized from old photographs. It was Gavin, Blair's older brother. A normal person might have been terrified. Having 2 angry men show up at your apartment uninvited is an intimidating scenario. But my analytical mind instantly calculated the variables. I lived in a secure building with cameras in the hallways. I had my phone in my pocket. And, most importantly, I lived in a state with one-party consent recording laws. That meant I was legally allowed to record any conversation I was a part of, without needing the permission or knowledge of the other people involved. I slid my hand into my pocket, tapped the screen of my smartphone, and activated the voice recording app. I made sure the microphone icon was pulsing red. Then, I unlocked the deadbolt and opened the door, leaving the heavy chain lock secured so they could not push their way inside. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice completely devoid of emotion. Wyatt immediately stepped forward, holding his hands up in a placating gesture. "Stella, please. We just need to talk to you for 5 minutes. This whole situation is getting out of control." Before I could answer, Gavin pushed his way past Wyatt, stepping aggressively close to the crack in the door. His face was red. You are completely out of line, lady. You are harassing my sister. You posted her address online. You tried to ruin Wyatt's reputation at his job, and now you are threatening to sue her? You are mentally unstable. I looked Gavin directly in the eyes. I did not raise my voice. I did not flinch. I just let the silence stretch for 3 seconds to establish dominance. I did not post her address, I stated clearly, making sure the phone in my pocket caught every word. I posted a map showing where my boyfriend was lying to me about being. And I am not threatening to sue her. I have already filed the paperwork. Your sister vandalized my car to the tune of $2,400. I have security footage of her in the pink sneakers Wyatt bought her, and I have a text message from her confessing to the crime. You do not have a damn thing, Gavin yelled, completely losing his temper. Wyatt winced and tried to grab Gavin's arm, but Gavin shook him off. That video is blurry garbage, and anyone could have sent that text message. You are just a bitter, jealous ex-girlfriend who cannot handle the fact that Wyatt never stopped loving Blair. I smiled. A very small, very cold smile. I needed him to keep talking. I needed him to dig the hole deeper. Is that right? I asked softly. I am just jealous? Because it seems to me that sneaking around for months and then keying someone's car is the actual definition of unstable behavior. So, what if we keyed your damn car? Gavin screamed, the veins bulging in his neck. You deserved it for humiliating her. You think you are so much smarter than everyone else? Yes, they're officially together now. They have been seeing each other for 6 months. Get over it and leave my family alone, or I swear to God I will make you regret it. Wyatt looked like he was going to vomit. He knew exactly what had just happened. He looked at me, his eyes wide with horror as the realization set in. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and tapped the bright red stop button on the screen right in front of their faces. The screen flashed, indicating the audio file had been saved. Thank you, Gavin, I said pleasantly. I really appreciate you coming by to confirm the timeline of the infidelity and confessing to the property damage on behalf of your sister. This audio recording will make an excellent addition to my court file. I closed the door in their faces and slid the deadbolt home. The audio recording of Gavin screaming his confession was safely backed up in 3 separate locations before I even walked away from the front door. I could hear Wyatt and Gavin arguing intensely in the hallway for about 2 minutes before the elevator doors opened and they finally left. The traps were fully set, and the mice had practically sprinted onto the glue traps. The next few days were quietly productive. I mailed the small claims paperwork via certified mail to Blair's apartment address. I received the delivery confirmation receipt 2 days later. The legal machinery was officially in motion, and there was nothing Wyatt or Blair could do to stop it. I expected total silence from their camp until the court date. But I had forgotten about the ultimate enabler in Wyatt's life, his mother. On Wednesday evening, my phone rang. The caller ID displayed Martha's name. I had always liked Martha. She was a sweet, slightly overbearing woman who had treated me very kindly during the 2 years I dated her son. She used to invite me over for Sunday dinners and tell me how happy she was that Wyatt had finally found a stable, intelligent woman after his chaotic years with Blair. I debated ignoring the call, but my analytical side demanded I gather all available data. I answered the phone. Hello, Martha, I said politely. Oh, Stella, sweetheart, Martha began, her voice dripping with a heavy, maternal sorrow. I am so glad you answered. I have been just sick with worry over all this terrible business. It is an unfortunate situation, I agreed neutrally. Stella, please, you have to listen to me as a mother, she pleaded. Wyatt is an absolute wreck. He is barely eating. He knows he made a terrible mistake. But you're a smart, professional woman. You do not need to drag yourself through the mud of the court system. This lawsuit is just going to cause everyone so much unnecessary pain. Blair is a very troubled girl, and she manipulates everyone around her. Wyatt was just caught in her web. He thought he was helping her through a family tragedy. I closed my eyes. The narrative of the grieving daughter was still being weaponized. Martha, I said, keeping my tone respectful but incredibly firm. I understand that you want to protect your son. That is what mothers do. But your son is 33 years old. He is not a child who got caught up in a bad crowd. He made a conscious, calculated decision to lie to my face, repeatedly, for 6 months. He was trying to help her cope with her father's passing, Martha insisted, her voice trembling slightly. You cannot fault a man for having a compassionate heart. Martha, I need you to listen to me very carefully, I said. Blair's father did not die last week. Thomas passed away from a massive heart attack in August of 2019. It is a matter of public record. Wyatt knew this. Blair knew this. They used a man who has been dead for almost 7 years as an alibi to cover up an affair. The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. I could almost hear the gears turning in Martha's mind as she processed the data. The timeline. The sheer, sociopathic audacity of the lie. That cannot be true, Martha whispered, but the conviction had completely drained from her voice. You have a computer in your living room, Martha. Type his name and the city into the search engine. You will see the obituary for yourself. Furthermore, Blair vandalized my car, causing over $2,000 in damage. And her brother came to my apartment and confessed to it on an audio recording. I am not suing them out of malice. I am suing them to recover the financial loss they caused me. I will not be discussing this further. Martha did not argue. She did not defend her son. She simply breathed out a shaky sigh and said, I am so sorry, Stella. She hung up the phone. The final pillar of Wyatt's support system had crumbled. The flying monkeys had been defeated with basic, verifiable facts. The groundwork was entirely laid. All that was left was the day in court, and my lawyer friend Penelope assured me we were bringing an absolute bazooka to a knife fight. The mandatory pre-trial mediation was scheduled for a Tuesday morning, exactly 3 weeks after the pizza incident. In our county, before a judge will hear a small claims case, both parties are required to sit in a room with a neutral mediator to attempt to reach a settlement. It is designed to clear up the court docket. Penelope, acting in her capacity as my legal counsel, had warned me that mediations with narcissists are rarely successful, but we had to play the game. The courthouse smelled of old wood, floor wax, and nervous sweat. Penelope and I sat on one side of a long, scarred conference table in a small, windowless room. The mediator, a tired-looking man in a rumpled suit, sat at the head of the table. At exactly 10 in the morning, the door opened. Wyatt and Blair walked in, accompanied by a young, incredibly nervous-looking attorney. Wyatt looked like he had aged 5 years in 3 weeks. Dark circles hung under his eyes, and his suit hung loosely on his frame. Blair, however, had dressed for a fashion show, not a legal proceeding. She wore an oversized beige trench coat, a designer silk scarf, and large, dark sunglasses indoors. She radiated pure, unadulterated arrogance. They took their seats across from us. Blair refused to look in my direction. The mediator read the rules of engagement and then asked the defense to present their opening position. Wyatt's young attorney cleared his throat and shuffled a stack of papers. Yes, thank you. My clients absolutely deny the allegations of vandalism. Furthermore, we are prepared to file a countersuit against the plaintiff, Stella, for severe emotional distress and public defamation. The malicious delivery of a pizza to my client's residence, followed by the posting of private location data online, has caused my client, Wyatt, extreme anxiety, loss of sleep, and damage to his professional reputation. Penelope let out a short, sharp laugh. It was a beautiful, terrifying sound. Emotional distress? Penelope asked, leaning forward and steepling her fingers. Your client lied about his location, engaged in a 6-month affair, and is now upset that he was caught on camera holding a pepperoni pizza? Good luck finding a judge who will entertain that circus act. We're here to recover $2,400 for documented property damage. That is the only number that matters. The young attorney flushed red. You have no proof my client damaged the vehicle. I decided it was time to apply a little pressure to the weak link in their chain. I looked directly at Blair, staring at her reflection in her oversized sunglasses. It must be incredibly exhausting, I said smoothly, my voice echoing in the small room. Having to attend a mediation session while you are still so deeply in mourning. Tell me, Blair, how is the grieving process going? It is amazing how much a person can suffer over a father who has been buried since August of 2019. Blair stiffened. The arrogant posture shattered instantly. She ripped her sunglasses off, revealing furious, glaring eyes. You shut your mouth. Blair screamed, slamming her hands down on the table. You do not know anything about me. You think you are so perfect with your spreadsheets and your boring life. Wyatt hated you. He was bored to tears. I keyed your stupid car because you deserved it. You stuck up. Blair, stop talking, her attorney shouted, looking horrified. The mediator raised his hands, looking alarmed. Okay, that is enough. This mediation is officially terminated due to hostile behavior from the defense. I will be noting this outburst in the file for the judge. We all stood up. The mediation had lasted less than 12 minutes. As Penelope and I walked out into the busy courthouse hallway, Wyatt chased after us. He grabbed my arm, his grip surprisingly tight. I pulled my arm away immediately. Stella, please, Wyatt begged, his voice cracking. His eyes were wide and desperate. You have to drop this. We do not have $2,400. I maxed out my credit cards covering her rent. Please. She is pregnant. We're having a baby. You cannot do this to a family. He dropped the pregnancy bomb, expecting my analytical firewall to crumble in the face of human empathy. He expected me to fold. I looked at him, feeling absolutely nothing. No pity. No anger. Just a cold, scientific observation of a failed variable. Congratulations on the baby, I said flatly. I suggest you start saving your money for diapers instead of lawyer fees. See you in the courtroom. The official hearing took place 2 hours after the failed mediation. Small claims court is not like the dramatic trials you see on television. There is no jury. There are no surprise witnesses bursting through the heavy wooden doors. It is a sterile, rapid-fire process designed to resolve financial disputes quickly. We were called into courtroom B. The judge presiding over the cases was a stern, gray-haired woman named Judge Higgins. She looked like someone who had spent 30 years listening to people lie and had entirely lost her patience for it. She sat high up on the bench, peering down at her docket over the rim of her reading glasses. Case number 402, the bailiff announced loudly. Stella versus Blair for property damage. We approached the front tables. Penelope and I stood on the left. Wyatt, Blair, and their increasingly sweaty attorney stood on the right. All right, Judge Higgins said, not looking up from the file. Plaintiff is seeking $2,400 for vehicular vandalism, plus court costs. Defense has threatened a counterclaim for emotional distress. Let us skip the theatrics. Miss Penelope, present your evidence of the vandalism. Penelope was a machine. She did not waste a single syllable. Yes, Your Honor. Exhibit A is the security footage from the plaintiff's parking garage, timestamped at 2:14 in the afternoon. The suspect is wearing a highly distinct pair of hot pink, limited edition sneakers. Exhibit B is a receipt showing the plaintiff purchased those exact sneakers for the defendant 1 month prior. Exhibit C is a text message from the defendant's verified cellular number, sent the same day, stating, quote, "Hope you like the new paint job. That is for humiliating me." End quote. Penelope handed the organized folder of documents to the bailiff, who passed it up to the judge. Judge Higgins reviewed the photographs and the text message log. Defense, Judge Higgins said, her tone flat. Does your client deny sending this text message? The young attorney stammered. Your Honor, phones can be spoofed. We cannot definitively prove my client sent that message, nor can we prove the person in the video is my client. The face is obscured. Your Honor, Penelope interjected smoothly. If the defense wishes to claim ambiguity, we submit Exhibit D. An audio recording, legally obtained in a one-party consent state, in which the defendant's brother, Gavin, states on the record, quote, "So what if we keyed your car? You deserved it." End quote. We have the audio file ready for playback. Wyatt buried his face in his hands. Blair stared at the floor, her face flushed a deep, angry red. Judge Higgins sighed heavily. She looked directly at Blair. Miss Blair, you are under oath. Did you or did you not take a sharp object to the side of the plaintiff's vehicle? Blair looked up, her ego still trying to fight a losing battle. She drove me to it. She humiliated Wyatt at his job. She is a sociopath. Judge Higgins slammed her gavel down so hard the sound cracked like a gunshot in the quiet courtroom. I did not ask for a psychological evaluation of the plaintiff. I asked if you damaged the car. Yes or no? Blair shrank back, intimidated by the sheer force of the judge's voice. Yes, she whispered bitterly. The courtroom was silent. The trap had closed. The data was verified. Judge Higgins did not even need to call a recess to review her notes. She picked up her heavy black pen and began writing on the official court ledger. I have heard enough, Judge Higgins announced, her voice echoing off the high ceiling. When adults throw temper tantrums and destroy property, they pay for it. This court is not a therapy session for your relationship issues. Judgment is found in favor of the plaintiff. The defendant, Blair, is ordered to pay $2,400 for the exact cost of the vehicle repair. Furthermore, I am awarding the plaintiff an additional $1,000 to cover court filing fees and legal consultation costs, bringing the total judgment to $3,400. Blair gasped audibly. Wyatt looked like he had just been struck by a physical blow. $3,400 was a devastating amount of money for a couple who had allegedly maxed out their credit cards to pay rent. As for the defense's mention of a counterclaim for emotional distress, Judge Higgins continued, glaring over her glasses at Wyatt's attorney, I find that notion entirely frivolous and an insult to this court's time. Do not file it. We are adjourned. The bailiff called the next case. Penelope and I gathered our neat, organized folders and walked out of the courtroom. The air in the hallway felt incredibly light. The crushing weight of the betrayal, the lies, and the gaslighting had been entirely neutralized by the cold, hard reality of the legal system. We walked out the heavy glass doors of the courthouse and into the bright, late morning sunlight. As I was walking toward my car, I heard footsteps jogging up behind me. I turned to see Wyatt. He had left Blair inside the building. Stella, please, wait, he panted, looking pathetic in his oversized suit. Please. We cannot afford $3,400. It will ruin us. The baby is coming. Cannot we work something out? Cannot you drop the extra $1,000? Please have a heart. You won. Is that not enough for you? I looked at him. I looked at the man I had spent 2 years planning a future with. I felt absolutely nothing for him. He was just a bad line of code I had successfully deleted from my system. Wyatt, I said, my voice calm and perfectly even. The court system is very accommodating. They accept monthly installment plans. You can set it up online. And for the record, I did not win today. He looked confused. What do you mean? I did not win, I repeated, unlocking my car with a click of the key fob. I just stopped losing. Goodbye, Wyatt. I got into my car, the same car that had been violated, now freshly sanded, painted, and gleaming beautifully under the sun. I put it in drive and drove away, leaving him standing alone in the courthouse parking lot. The healing process was not immediate. Trauma from betrayal rarely is. But the victory in the courtroom provided a solid, concrete foundation upon which I could rebuild my life. I threw myself into my work, earned a promotion to lead data analyst, and finally took that solo vacation to a beautiful resort in Mexico that I had originally planned to take with Wyatt. The margaritas tasted significantly better without a liar sitting across the table. And the universe, in all its poetic justice, delivered a steady, recurring dose of satisfaction. Exactly 1 month after the court date, my phone chimed with a notification from the county clerk's online payment system. Payment received. $200 from Blair. Remaining balance, $3,200. Because they could not afford the lump sum, the court had garnished Blair's wages. Every single month, on the 15th day of the month, like absolute clockwork, that notification popped up on my screen. $200. It was a mandatory, legally enforced monthly reminder that I had been right. It was a digital invoice for their betrayal, and they were forced to pay it month after agonizing month. 6 months later, Naomi called me to apologize. She admitted that she and the rest of the friend group had been manipulated by Wyatt. She also delivered the final piece of the puzzle. Wyatt and Blair's relationship had imploded spectacularly. The pressure of the debt, combined with their naturally toxic personalities, had destroyed them. The final blow came when Blair, heavily pregnant, caught Wyatt sending inappropriate text messages to a completely different ex-girlfriend from his college days. The cycle of lies never ends for people like Wyatt. They just find new victims to manipulate. But they could no longer manipulate me. I had extracted myself from their chaotic orbit with surgical precision. I eventually wrote down the entire sequence of events and posted it anonymously on a popular blog dedicated to surviving toxic relationships. Within days, it had thousands of comments from women who had been called crazy for trusting their analytical instincts. The data never lies. You just have to be willing to read it. I looked at my phone as the latest notification arrived. Another $200 deposited safely into my account. I smiled, closed the app, and got back to my beautiful, peaceful life. So, tell me, was I too methodical, too cold for dragging them through the legal system over a scratched door, or did they get exactly the reality check they deserved? Let me know your verdict in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and share your thoughts below. It really helps the channel grow. See you in the next story.